Welcome, everyone. I have a very special segment today. It's very exciting. Frank Chille has returned after it's been a while, and I miss you. And
Thank you.
Andrea, Dr. Andrea Martin, also, thank you both for coming back.
Oh, it's an honor, always an honor. Yeah.
It certainly is. It's always a joy and an honor to share with people regarding some of these extraordinary individuals whose lives have impacted our planet in a very beneficial way.
Absolutely, yes. And
one of the things I want to mention about this is that all of my high school students who are taking classes at Worcester State University, they're taking college level classes on disclosure. They're going to be able to use this program today as part of their lesson program and what's happened with disclosure and all this wonderful stuff that's rolling out.
Yes.
Wow. So we're going to say hi to them today. We're going to say hi to them.
Hi.
Yes.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'm so glad that you're going to be able to share this. So yeah, so we'll get started. Frank has a lot of photographs here that we're going to be sharing with you, and then you can start with the presentation of what they are. So we're going to get started with this first picture, which I will bring up. There we go.
This individual, his name is George Van Tassel. He was a remarkable fellow. He was born in May of, I believe it was May 12th of 1910. And he grew up in Southern California. And he got a job working initially as in a service station, servicing vehicles. And he became an aircraft pilot, and he also became an aircraft mechanic. He wound up working for Douglas Aircraft. He worked for Lockheed, and he worked for Hughes Aircraft. When he was at Hughes Aircraft, he befriended Howard Hughes. And during World War II, Howard Hughes chose George Van Tassel to be one of his wingmen in his squadron. George happened to be his left wingman in his squadron, and his right wingman, believe it or not, was the great baseball player from Boston, Ted Williams. And the reason he chose Ted Williams is Ted Williams' vision was so incredible. He used to say that in a baseball game, he could see the stitches on a fastball being thrown at him. His vision was something like 10-10. It was just really extraordinary. So Ted Williams was his right wing pilot, pilot, and having his own plane. And George was his left. And of course, there were other planes behind him. So that formed an incredible relationship that stayed with George for quite a while. So after the war ended, George met a fella by the name of Frank Kreitzer, and we can go on to the next image. Okay. Frank Kreitzer was a German immigrant who became naturalized here in the United States, and he told George about a mine that he was working in the Giant Rock area. And Giant Rock is a huge, I think it's the largest standing boulder in North America. It is a huge area at the edge of the Mojave Desert. And he told George that he had a facility that he had built underneath the rock, and he lived there. Well, during the war, unfortunately, there was some suspicion that Frank Kreitzer was communicating with Germans and sharing information over a shortwave radio. And as fate would have it, the local sheriff went out to serve papers to search his facility, and Frank Kreitzer would not allow anybody into his private residence, and he blew himself up in that facility. And this happened, I believe, in 1945, shortly after the war, and George applied for a permit to not only have access to Giant Rock and the area around it, but also he purchased the airport that will be in the next slide.
Oh, sorry. Oh, that's so cool.
Okay. You could say right there, after George cleared out the area where Frank Kreitzer lived, he built his own facility there to stay underground and live underground. And him and his wife, and he had 3 daughters. And he said that he started to do meditations, and he started to meditate in 1953, in the early part of 1953. And we could go on to the next slide and show the local airport there that he purchased. this is Giant Rock Airport, and he purchased access to this small airport which private planes could come and land. And he had a restaurant and coffee shop. It's to the extreme left-hand side. It's in front of the Giant Rock itself. And his wife would make pies, and Howard Hughes would fly in to the Mojave Desert and go out and visit George Van Tassel. He loved to have coffee there, and he'd love to get George's wife's pies.
Wow.
So he went there and visit and get pies and drink coffee, and they would share stories and experiences. And that continued for quite some period of time. In the summertime, it became so warm that at nighttime, George and his wife and his children would sleep outside under the stars, and they had dogs. So if anybody came into the area at nighttime, the dogs would bark and alert George and his wife that visitors were coming in. Or if a plane was going to be landing, of course, the dogs would hear the vibration of the plane coming, and that would help wake up George too. So this one night, go ahead. I'm sorry, Linda, what were you going to say?
I was just saying amazing.
It is. Well, one night, this was August 24th of 1953. They were camped outside under the stars, and it was a moonless night. And George did not hear any of the dogs being upset or any barking, but he felt a presence next to his bedroll because they were all sleeping in the desert in bedrolls. So he sat up in his bedroll, and he saw the saucer that was hovering behind this man that was standing in front of him at the foot of his bedroll. And the being looked just like us. He had blonde hair and blue eyes. He was wearing a one-piece suit, and he introduced himself with the name Solganda, Solganda. And Solganda told George that he was here visiting from Venus, and he wanted to begin to interact with George and share information with him about our cosmic family. And he said to George, would you like to take a ride in my craft? And again, the craft was hovering maybe about 6 or 8 feet above the ground behind where Solganda was standing. So George said, yes, he would. So his wife and his children were still sleeping, and the craft landed. George entered into it, and Solganda took him on like a tour of our solar system, showing him the different planets. And he said to George, he said, we would like to work with you regarding a concept that we utilize that creates a rejuvenation effect on our bodies. As our bodies age, the telomere gene, as you know, extends or it recedes, and we tend to age. Well, he said, we do not have an aging problem on our world. Solganda, who looked to be like in his mid-20s at the latest, looked to be very youthful, and yet he told George that he was like 2,400 years of age in Earth years. So he said they wanted to create an opportunity for Earth beings to have access to this technology for rejuvenation, and also could be used for time travel. So they told George, we will begin communicating with you and give you the designs for this building that he was told would be called the Integratron. So you can go on to the next slide, Linda. This is an image of the early construction of the Integratron. Solganda had told him that this device was to be built without any metal at all. It's made out of wood, it's made out of concrete, and it's made out of a space age composition that Westinghouse had developed in the 50s for satellites. So that was all incorporated into the design and the construction of the Integratron. And the Integratron was built with private donations from people because George's idea was to have this open and free to the public. And he also had an idea for having a College of Universal Wisdom all around this Integratron with an observatory, with buildings that would be partially underground, so it would reflect the heat of the day off of the ground, and create a conditions where people could come and learn and grow in knowledge and wisdom. Now, he had also been told, and I never validated this myself, but the center part of the Integratron, if you drew a line through the Earth to the other side of the planet, it would connect to the center point of the Great Pyramid of Giza. These two devices were linked energetically, okay? You can go on to the next image. This is how the Integratron looked before they painted it. And again, this is made with all wood, okay? It's 4 stories tall. It's 55 feet in diameter. Each of the sections, it's made up of 16 sections. And what's interesting about this design is the wood and the way that the wood overlaps to form the dome. George Van Tassel had gotten the idea for this working with Howard Hughes. Before Howard Hughes had built the Spruce Goose, he built another all-wood plane that was called D2. And George Van Tassel learned from working on that plane project with Howard Hughes that this would be a very good way of tying together these different segments of the dome. And again, it's 16 segments, and around the outer edge of the dome happens to represent 64 diodes. And these diodes were to spin, creating an electrostatic charge. And the device itself was going to be the world's largest negative ion machine. You've heard of negative ion machines, which tend to eliminate negative aspects, negative energy to clean the air. Well, this was going to be generating trillions and trillions of negative ions to bombard the body and to create a rejuvenation effect. You can go on to the next slide. This is George with a cutaway image of how the dome looks on the outside and how it would be constructed on the inside. Now, what's very interesting is the top part of the dome was going to have affixed to it an armature, and the armature would slowly rotate inside of the dome. And as it's rotating, and those 64 diodes are rotating around the base of the dome, they would create that negative ionization effect. And you can go on to the next slide.
Fascinating.
Okay, this is an image of the dome when it was completed, but the wiring was not completed in it. And George had set up an antenna there to receive information and to receive signals, because he was communicating with shortwave radio with individuals, and also they were receiving messages from the Starcraft. As they were in the area, they would send information to George, and he would receive information. And he published a little newsletter called Proceedings. It was called Proceedings from the College of Universal Wisdom. Go ahead, you can go on to the next slide. Okay, this is an early image taken when the Integratron was being completed, and these starcraft are actually cloud formations of lenticular clouds, which actually house and cloak saucers. So this was a photograph that George had taken and made available through his publication Proceedings for people to see. You can go on to the next one.
Beautiful.
This is an image of a star angel that George said materialized over the top of the dome, and took this photograph and shared this. It's a beautiful, beautiful image.
Yes, I love that.
You can go on to the next one. It's beautiful. This is an early photograph taken again in the 50s, and this shows a craft very similar to the craft that Soganda landed and was behind him when he met George Van Tassel for the first time. And there's been a lot of UFO activity in that area in the Mojave, but this is a remarkable photograph. And if you can make that larger, people could see a little bit more of the detail of the craft.
Very clear. I mean, it's probably one of the clearest photos I've ever seen of
Yes.
the craft.
And yeah, and the thing is, well, these are like Billy Mier's photos as well, and they've all been verified. Because
Yes.
remember, they didn't have CG. We think today, oh, you could fake that. That's no big deal. But they didn't have that capability back then. What year was this, Frank? Roughly,
Probably about 58, maybe 59.
There's no way you could do that. They didn't have CGI back then.
No, I mean, that is really crystal clear. You could probably make it a little bit larger and see a little bit more detail to the dome and underneath.
Starts to get pixelated, but yes, you can. It looks like a bell almost.
Yeah, and you can see now up close that, if we can see, negative or something, but you can even see with this the way you want to see the way the light hits it.
Yes,
and how it sits in the picture frame. Because if they were going to fake something like this in the late 1950s, it would be fairly obvious.
Yeah.
But this, if you take a look at this, it's really integrated into the photo. So if the negatives were available, like I said, and this is similar to what Billy Mier had presented. And recently, through technology, we've been able to deduce that those things weren't. There's no way they could fake them in those days. Now we could probably fake them today, but they weren't.
Yes.
So even though it might look strange to people, but that's more than likely authentic.
Yes. And again, it's a remarkable photograph. And again, he published these in his little newsletter called Proceedings. And a lot of these photos people have never seen before. And I'm happy to be able to put them all together and be able to share them with your audience and with your group.
Yeah, I've never seen this one. That's
No, that's yeah.
Now, this is a remarkable photograph. Giant rock where George had lived underneath of it. And it's not too far away from where the Integratron was constructed. It's probably about maybe a half mile away. George started to have conventions there in 1954, and he would bring in contactees from all over the United States that had experiences with meeting people from the stars. And at one of these meetings, and these would draw like 10,000 people from all around the country back in the 50s. And a good friend of both myself and my brother, Simon, his name is Gabriel Green, we would visit him out in the desert, and he would have taken photos and footage of all these events that occurred back there. Well, at this one giant rock convention, a county sheriff happened to be there and was taking a photograph. And when he took the photograph, this craft materialized and showed up in the image. And it's real. It was taken by a county sheriff, and it's not falsified. It's not doctored. That is a huge craft.
Yeah.
See if you could zoom in on it a little bit, Linda.
Wow.
It's probably maybe 300 or 400 feet in diameter. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And what's interesting is when he took the photograph, the people in the foreground didn't even notice that a craft had materialized there. So it was like the craft and the beings wanted this county sheriff to take this photograph. And you could see the cars in the parking lot. And it's really in the parking lot. It's just a desert. It's the edge of the Mojave. And
like it's daytime, right?
It was daytime, yes. But it's generating so much energy and so much light.
Wow.
Those giant rock conventions were amazing because people who had contact experience would come there, share their experiences. If they had any photos, they would share the photos and share their stories. And again, these were all individuals who were meeting visitors that look just like us, who were coming here and visiting the planet and trying to awaken us to the concept of we're part of a star family, cosmic family.
Yes. Thank you for sharing these. This is amazing.
Hey, this is another early image of the Integratron, and you could see the trough around it. The trough around it was going to contain water. So when the positive energy was stripped off the bodies of the people who would be going in there, the positive energy would be dissipated in that trough of water, and it would be just absorbed into the earth. It would be like neutralizing the positive ions coming off the people, and it would be dissipated in the water, and it would have no negative effect on the ground or anything like that. So this was so well thought out. It's really remarkable. It really is. You can go on to the next one. Okay, this is a picture of George Van Tassel in front of a sign that used to be there about his work with the Integratron. There was a time machine that it could be used for anti-gravity. That was for rejuvenation and health benefits. And again, all the funds that came in for this device were all contributions. And George started to get a lot of hassles from the government in regards to the FDA was looking into what it was he was trying to do because the lobbyists in the pharmaceutical industry were trying to prevent a concept like this from coming into realization because the lobbyists wanted the people to continue to use pharmaceuticals, not to use an energy source for rejuvenation and for overcoming disease and overcoming basically death.
Absolutely. No, they wouldn't be able to make money off of that.
Now, this is an image of underneath the floor of the dome of the Integratron. And if you could zoom in on the right-hand side, you'll see the incredible matrix of wiring that George Van Tassel and his two son-in-laws, Daniel Boone and Norm Paulson, helped him to do. I mean, it's really, really incredible. It's like a spider web, and they were told the exact distance that each one of the copper wires had to be from one another, and it had to form like a circle but all the circles contributed to the buildup of energy that was going to be generated by the dome. And if you can go on to the next one, you'll see another detailed image of that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a very good picture.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, the amount of time that went into this and the time of detail to be able to string this as precisely as they have is absolutely remarkable. And again, they were all donating their time to do this.
I don't even like to change
Now
the
what-
strings
yes,
of my
you think.
guitar, so.
I know. How would that spin?
Yes.
That one spin. That did not spin. That was
That did not
stationary.
go. I was stationary.
But the diodes are around the bottom of the dome, not at the base, not at the ground level, but at the base of the dome would spin, and the energy that would be picked up by the armature and also by the spinning of the diodes would have an effect on these wires underneath the floor that would help to create this full negative ionization, and the body would be bathed into it. They said you'd only have to go in there for a 5-minute period, and you couldn't wear any metal inside of the building. The building, you had to wear, no metal eyelets, no metal belt buckles, nothing like that. And George said that a person would only have to come there once every 35 years, and it would roll back the clock on aging and completely eliminate disease. And it was going to be open to the public. And the Giant Rock Airport would be probably upgraded to a facility that could accommodate more modern planes because it's huge. That dry lake bed must be 10, maybe 12 miles long. I mean, it's like an enormous bowl.
Wow.
Go ahead, Linda. You can go on to the next. Go ahead.
Like, it looks like people lived in here. So did he live in here or?
No, he used that for research. He would do research, and he would keep notes, and he would get information from our friends from upstairs, and they would help him to fine tune what it was that was being done here.
Okay. Oh, nice.
Now this is the top of the dome, okay? And you could see how the panels fit together so beautifully. I mean, it's just really, really remarkable. And from the inside and the outside, don't those windows almost look like portholes, like you're inside a ship?
Yes.
Yeah.
It really does. It really does. To see the building in a desert, it's like seeing something that doesn't belong on this planet. It looks like an off-planet structure. And the armature was going to fit into the center part of that opening, okay? And it would gradually go around the inside of those wood panels, and as it would be going around, it would be creating a negative ionization effect, and the energy would also be coming up from the floor, okay, where those wires were underneath the wood floor, and the diode spinning on the outside would be dissipating the electrostatic charge of the positive ions that were being stripped off the body, and the body would be filled with all these negative ions. And from what I understand, this is a concept that they use on many, many planets, the negative ionization effect to create rejuvenation and longevity. And some of the beings had ages at 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 years of age, and they look to be in their mid-20s.
Amazing.
It really is.
What is this right here? This part?
There are chairs there. The people who purchased this from the Van Tassel family, the wiring inside was never completed. There was supposed to be wiring on the inside panels of those 16 different segments. And I have a story about that I'll share with you a little bit later on. But now the people who bought it, they create sound baths there. So people go in there and they do meditation and they have sound baths with bowls. And the energy in there, the acoustics are pitch perfect. When I was inside of it, you could hear like a pin drop. The acoustics are so perfect. And you can see the sunlight coming in the dome. Isn't that beautiful?
You could see, yeah. It almost looks like dust.
That's really beautiful.
Wow.
Have they ever thought about finishing it and using it?
Well, we're going to get to that.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're
jumping ahead.
Yeah.
Well, you know me.
That's all right. This image of the Integratron in the foreground and in the background is called Goat Mountain. And Doris Van Tassel, George's wife, told me that FBI agents and other intelligence agency operatives would be on top of that mountain with telescopes and with binoculars, recording everything that the Van Tassels were doing with the construction of this facility.
Wow.
And believe it or not, they actually opened up an FBI file on him like he was a subversive. He was not a subversive. He was working with our star family to bring a gift to us that they had wanted us to have as a gift that will create a lot of benefit to our planet. And it's like they didn't want that to happen.
They didn't
No,
know. They most certainly,
They did not
did
want-
not. He was
I
probably
really-
one of the, they would have seen him as one of the worst subversives. I mean, that would have been.
I really
No.
love this. I love how
It's
the
a beautiful-
full moon is lined up with it. Like, yeah, that's awesome.
Now, not in this photograph, but if you can go back to that other one, the previous one, not that one. No, the one after it with the Goat Mountain.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
The right of the Integratron was George Van Tassel's home. It was a ranch type home, and it was all on one floor. And they had in their living room, they had bow windows looking out towards the Integratron and towards the Mojave Desert. It was really beautiful. But that's not in this photograph. But I just want to tell you that because there's a story associated with that a little later. Go ahead, you can go on to the next one.
Wow, this is beautiful.
This is the Integratron at night. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Now, Andrew, doesn't that look like it doesn't belong here?
No, it doesn't. Yeah. I mean, it looks like a drawing or a painting.
Or
I know.
mean,
observatory. It kind of almost looks like an observatory, or like,
yes.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
beautiful. I love all the stars. It must have been amazing to look at all the stars out
You
there.
can't imagine how beautiful it is there at nighttime. The image of the Milky Way out there is so extraordinary, and you'll see a photograph of that a little later on. Now look at this in a blue hue. Isn't it remarkable?
Yeah.
I mean, that is just so beautiful. It really is.
Yes.
Almost every photograph of that is really, truly remarkable. And it's what it does is it nudges consciousness and it wants you to know more about what it is that they wanted to gift us with and how it could benefit us.
It almost looks like a planet with a ring around it.
It
Now,
does.
I know
It does.
it does. This is a photograph of it during electrical storms. They get a lot of electrical storms out there, not a lot of rain, but a lot of energy from the electrical storms. And this is a remarkable photograph I wanted to share with you.
They look like paintings. You can't believe that's a real
You know,
photo.
they do.
Like, you're
They
like,
really do.
It almost looks like Tesla, like
I was
Warden.
Tesla. Yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right, because Tesla's energy in his works correspond with George Van Tassel's Integratron, because it creates scalar waves. And on the left is an image of scalar waves that Tesla had drawn and used in his own work. And Van Tassel had studied the work of Tesla and incorporated some of those energy concepts into the Integratron, and of course with the assistance of our friends from upstairs. But how the light comes in from the portals, isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. What is this part right here? What does this signify?
What are you pointing at?
These like it looks like ripples, and then it's got these.
Oh yeah, that's part of the scalar waves. That the Integratron generates those kinds of scalar waves.
Okay, so that's what they look like. If we
That's
could
what
see.
they look like. Yes, that's an artist's rendition of how the scalar waves would look, and how Tesla's his Tesla coil would generate energy. And you'll see a photograph. Somebody set up a Tesla coil outside of the Integratron, and it's a remarkable photograph.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
Wow.
I mean,
cool.
you could just hear it crackling, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I love
Now,
it.
Tesla coils could generate billions of volts of energy, but the Integratron would create trillions of negative ions. It's really remarkable, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. Now, this is an image of the Milky Way at night, and that orange glow was a reflection of the sky at sunset just before it was getting dark, and you could see the Milky Way. It's really, really remarkable.
So it's just
Now-
like that's a natural light right there that's on it. It's not like
Right, yeah. There's no artificial light at all. It's all natural light. I mean, you could see that at different parts of sunrise and sunset and just get really remarkable images, and the coloration is beautiful. It's like it was meant to be photographed.
right. Wow.
Now, I want to share with you. Go ahead.
I think that's the last photo we have.
Yes. Now I'm going to share some insights regarding aspects of the Integratron that I had the honor and the opportunity to experience. My brother Simon is an architect, and he graduated from the Pratt Institute in New York City, and he felt a calling to go out to the Integratron, and George Van Tassel passed away in February 8th, 1978. And Simon went out there about 6 months after George had passed. He felt a real calling to go to the desert and to assist Doris in using his insights for the design of the College of Universal Wisdom, because so much information had been given to Van Tassel from our star brothers and star sisters. So Simon went out there, and he was living with Doris. And as fate would have it, I got an opportunity to relocate with my company. And I actually moved out there 6 months after Simon was in. And I lived in Tustin, California. And Simon came to visit me, and he said, "Frank, can you get away for the weekend?" He said, "I need you to come to the Integratron. You need to experience this." So at the time I was married, and my wife Donna, she knew Simon very well, and she realized that he was very gifted and very talented, but she was nowhere into this at all. She was a very black and white person. Either it was, as it is, there's no gray area. And she thought that our being interested in UFOs was kind of fanciful. And she would always wonder how people who are so intelligent get involved in something that she thought was quite nonsensical. But she allowed me to do what it is that I wanted to pursue. So I asked her if it would be all right to spend the weekend out at the Integratron at Doris's facility. And she said, "Sure, Frank, if you want to do that, go ahead." So I had a bedroll, and Simon and I drove out to the desert, to the high desert area. Now, Landers in Yucca Valley is above Palm Springs. It's about 2,000 feet in elevation above Palm Springs. And you pass San Jacinto as you're going out there. And San Jacinto has had a lot of UFO activity. There's a small airport there, not as small as a Giant Rock Airport, but it's called Idlewild. And there's a lot of... Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, it's funny because there was a park named Idlewild Park when I was a kid that I used to go to. But anyway, go ahead.
So Idlewild is a small airport. It's next to San Jacinto. And San Jacinto has had a lot of UFO activity. And years later, when I met Bill Tompkins, he told me that there's a facility inside that mountain that the space visitors use. And he told me that he would bring documentation out there on behalf of the Navy. And he said at the where the ski lodge is at San Jacinto, he said there's a doorway that's near the set of stairs to where you go up to the lifts to ski down. And he said it's a locked door. And he said he had the key to the door. And he said inside is an elevator that goes to the base of the mountain. And he said inside the mountain is a facility where people come and interact with Earth beings, and they look just like us. And I had a chance to see that, and that'll be a story for another time. But anyway, Simon and I are driving out to the high desert area, to Yucca Valley, and we get to Landers, and we go to the Integratron, and we go to Doris's house. Doris is George's wife, and I got a chance to meet her, and she was an elegant lady and very soft-spoken, but she was a chiropractor too, and she had tremendous strength for a small woman. She was maybe about 4'3", 4'4", something like that. And she took us inside the Integratron. I got a chance to see it and feel its energy and appreciate the acoustics of it, how perfect the sound level was inside of it. And she said, "I'm glad you're here and you're going to be staying for the weekend." And I said, "Yes." I said, "It's going to be a joy." So she made dinner for Simon and I. And after dinner, she said, "Would you like if I gave each one of you a chiropractic massage?" So Simon and I both agreed to it. And it was incredible. She was flipping Simon and I around like we were rag dolls. She had so much energy. It was unreal. I couldn't believe how much energy this woman had. So Simon would always spend his night in the bedroll in the living room. And she said, Simon and I could stay there. And we had our bedrolls. And she said, when she went to bed, she said, "Simon and Frank, just be careful careful. At nighttime, sometimes people come out of the desert and they knock on the door. And she said, just be very careful who comes in. We told her, all right, we would be. So she turned in about maybe 10:30 or 11, and Simon and I are laying on the floor in our bedrolls and talking, and it's probably like 1 o'clock in the morning. And the next thing we knew, the living room was cascaded with light coming in from outside. The light coming into the living room was so intense, it was the brightest white light I've ever seen. There was no sound. Simon and I became immobile. We could not move. We could see, our eyes were open, we had full consciousness, but we just couldn't move. So we heard the door to the kitchen open up, and we heard footsteps going across the kitchen floor, and we heard a knock on Doris's bedroom door, and we heard Doris said, come in. And we heard someone go into the door and close the door, and a person was in there talking with Doris for maybe about 10 or 15 minutes. And we could hear their voices, and they just sound like two normal voices. And maybe 10 or 15 minutes had passed. And I need to say this to you, that Doris had told us that probably 2 or 3 months before George had passed away, she said his body didn't seem like his real body. She said she'd always given him massages at the end of the day, and she said his muscle structure didn't feel the same the last 2 months that he was there with her. And she wondered about that. She wondered why it was so different, because she said, you know, the muscular structure of somebody's body, especially if you're a chiropractor, you've worked with them, and they had been married for quite a period of time. So after about 10 minutes, maybe 15 at the most, we heard the door to her bedroom open, and we heard her say goodbye. And the person said goodbye to her was a male voice. And we heard footsteps going across the kitchen floor. We heard the kitchen door close. And the next thing we knew, there was this tremendous flash of white light, and Simon and I could move. So we were so jazzed. We were wondering, what did we experience? So we didn't want to disturb Doris. We said we'd wait till the morning time and ask her about what had gone on that night. So Simon drifted off, and I was still wired. It was probably about 3 o'clock in the morning. So we're in the living room, and the front door is there, and I heard a knock on the door. So I didn't want to wake up Simon. I didn't want to try to wake up Doris. So I walked to the door, and I opened the front door, and they had a screen door there too. And there was nobody on the porch. So I pushed the screen door open, and it was a beautiful night. It was a summer night, and the stars were just gorgeous in the sky, just shimmering, and there was no moon. So I walked out on the porch, and I saw no one there at all. But I looked towards the horizon, and this was past Goat Mountain, and I saw 2 lights, like a pair of lights, come up and go over the top of the roof of the Van Tassel home, like north to south. And then I saw a pair of lights off to my right come up over the horizon and fly over the top of the house, east to west. So in my mind, it was like it formed a cross over the house. And I thought, this is really significant. And I went back in the house, and I closed the screen door, and I locked the front door, and I waited till the morning time. And Doris came out about 8 o'clock, and she said, you'll never guess what happened last night. She said, we had a visit. She said, were you and Simon uncomfortable with what had occurred? And we said, no, not at all. I said, we were immobilized. She said that the visitor who came to talk to her wanted to have privacy to talk to Doris and didn't want to harm Simon or I in any way. And they just immobilized us with a beam of energy. So we were still conscious. There was no discomfort, no pain, nothing like that. We could hear everything. We could see. We just couldn't move our heads or our bodies. So she said it was a star visitor who came to tell her that her husband, George, had not died, that he had been brought on board a craft, and they had brought down an android body to replace him. And she said that the visitor told her that the android body was the one that was put in the ground and passed away. It wasn't her husband, George, that George was still alive. And the star being wanted her to know that. And Simon and I just happened to be there, and I told her about what had occurred when Simon went to sleep, about the knock on the door, and she just smiled. And it was really, really interesting to have that experience, knowing that our friends had been right there in the front yard, and that beam of light was from their ship that bathed. And I'm telling you, when it bathed the living room through the bow window, there was no shadows. Everything was like white light. It was just really, really beautiful.
Wow.
So it was an incredible, incredible experience. So I went back to Tustin, and as fate would have it, my wife and I separated. I wound up getting an apartment there, and Simon and I would get together and go up to Yucca Valley, and we met Gabriel Green, who was the one who was the photographer for the Giant Rock Airport UFO exhibits. And we would stay at his house for the weekend. And he introduced us to other contactees in the area. And one of the photos that didn't come up, I think, was the one with Norm Paulson and Daniel Boone. It was a black and white photograph of them playing horseshoes.
Okay.
That didn't come up?
No,
I
that
didn't-
that wasn't in one of
wasn't
that
in
wasn't one of our
my-
files, no.
Yeah, it wasn't in my
Okay.
files.
Well, anyway, Daniel Boone was a direct descendant of the pioneer Daniel Boone. He
Oh,
and Norm Paulson married each one of them married one of the Van Tassel daughters, because George had 3 daughters and no sons. So the third daughter was married to a guy that after the marriage ended, he moved to Los Angeles and was believe it or not, a car salesman. And Jeff Renz wound up running into him when he was a reporter working out of Costa Mesa. He said, "Frank, I met one of the men who married one of the Van Tassel daughters." And he said, "I didn't realize it at the time."
Huh.
So anyway, Gabe introduced us to Daniel Boone, and Simon and I would go out and visit with him. And he told us the most extraordinary stories. He had the most incredible blue eyes. It was like the most incredible blue eyes I've ever seen. And he had blonde hair.
Huh.
And he told us that when they were building the Integratron, he said one day he was cleaning up the remains of the wood that was used for the construction of the Integratron. And he said there were 3 fellas there. And he said they were all wearing jeans and they were wearing like flannel shirts. And he said one of them was sitting on the bed of the pickup truck, the Van Tassel's pickup truck. So he had a piece of wire in his hands, and he was coiling it in a very unusual pattern. So Daniel went over to him, and he watched him configure this, and he said to Daniel, "Touch the end of it and tell me how it feels." So Daniel touched the end of it, and he said it was hot. And this young fellow said to Daniel, "This is a destructive use of energy. Anything that generates heat is a destructive use of energy." So he straightened the wire out, and he recoiled it, and he told Daniel, "Touch the end of it now and tell me how it feels." So Daniel touched it, and he said it was ice cold. And the fellow said to him, "This is a constructive use of energy. It's important that you know this because you're going to be instrumental in something very important here." So Daniel said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "I have to get rid of these wood scraps." They had a place where they would burn them there, not too far away. So Daniel went and he dumped the wood scraps, and he came back, and the 3 guys were gone. And there were no vehicles there except George Van Tassel's flatbed truck. So Daniel said to George, "What happened to the 3 guys who were just here?" And George just smiled at him. He said they were visitors. They just came down to visit with us for a while, and they said they went back up aboard their ship.
Yeah.
So Daniel wound up having his own experiences with the visitors, and they gave him, and he had it committed to memory, the final wiring diagram for the inside of the dome of the Integratron. It was never put in writing. He committed it to memory. And that was the first interaction that he had with the star visitors. And he said, "Daniel, remember this, because at some point in the future, it's going to be important that you can tap into this and complete the Integratron with this information." So he lived in an area that was so remote, out in the Landers area, the Mojave. And Simon and I would go and visit him. And he said another time, I said, "Daniel, have you seen the visitors lately?" And his eyes welled up with tears. He said, "Yes, they were here last night." And he said, "They invited me on board the ship." And he said it was a scout craft similar to the one that you had, the photograph, the black and white one by the Integratron.
right.
And we said, "Daniel, how was it inside?" He said, "It was beautiful." He said, "It had the most incredible geometric patterns and the most beautiful colors you can imagine." And he said, when it took off, there was no sense of motion at all. He said it was like being in your living room, sitting in your living room chair. And he said they would always give me instructions about things to be aware of, that we had free will and it was important to make choices that are beneficial to why it is that we're here. And he would tell stories about the visitors and just well up with tears. So another time when Simon and I went to visit him, he told us a story of a guy who came to visit Van Tassel in the wintertime. And in the wintertime, the desert gets very, very, very cold. So he had stayed there for about a week, and it was time for him to leave. It was going to be a Sunday afternoon, and it was very windy outside. And this fella just had on a pair of jeans and a flannel shirt, and he was going to leave. He was saying goodbye to everyone. And Daniel said, "But sir, you have no jacket. You can't go out into the desert night air. It's going to be freezing tonight." And the fellow said to him, "I don't have anything to worry about." He said, I'll be all right. And Daniel said, no, I have to give you a jacket. So he ran home and he got his warmest jacket and he came back and gave it to the person. And the person thanked Daniel very much for it. And he said, "I can't accept a gift from you without giving you a gift back, Daniel." So he gave him a sleeping bag. So they said goodbye and he started walking out into the desert, and he walked maybe about 100 feet into the desert and he disappeared. So George told him he was another visitor. So when the spring came, George felt a calling. I'm sorry, not George. Daniel felt a calling to go to Mount Shasta. And, you know, Mount Shasta is very mystical. It's a very spiritual place.
Yeah.
So Daniel went there and he brought the sleeping bag that the stranger had given him. And he put the sleeping bag out underneath a tree. And he said it was about almost dusk, maybe about 8:45, almost 9 o'clock. And he said the next thing he knew, he's in a sleeping bag. It levitates off the ground and goes right inside of Mount Shasta. He says a doorway opened, and he said he was brought into the mountain, and he saw individuals who live inside the mountain. They welcomed him there, and they took him to a room. And Daniel said it was a cone-shaped room. He said it was a door at the base of this cone-shaped room, and the room came to a point like an upside-down ice cream cone, okay? And when the door closed, Daniel heard the most incredible music he had ever heard in his life. And he said it brought him to tears. He said he never heard such beautiful, beautiful music. So he doesn't know how long he was in there. But when the music stopped and the door opened, and he said, "Where did that music come from? I've never heard music like that before." And the person who was escorting Daniel said, "This room was designed to amplify the sound of your soul." He said, "What you were hearing was the musical frequency of your own soul."
Wow.
And everyone has their own unique soul frequency. And he said he was told he got the chance to hear the sound of his own soul. And he said, Frank, it was the most incredible experience he ever had in his life. And he said, it stays with you. And he said, everything is vibration, everything is frequency. And he said, this room heightened that so you could hear the sound of your soul.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. I love that.
So I wanted to share that with you, and that Daniel had been given that final wiring diagram. And when George had gotten into all that difficulty with the FBI and with the FDA trying to stop him from doing it, they told Daniel that until mankind's ready, it will not be fully utilized. But there'll be other sources of uplifting mankind and to energize the body. But that one was not to be used at this time until mankind was ready for it. But that technology still exists, and it's going to be available when we're ready for it, because these gifts never age. The gifts are always permanent. And it was a gift from the stars. And thank God it's still being utilized, and people could go out there and experience it and have the sound baths. And people who've had sound baths, they said it reverberates throughout your entire being when you hear the sound of the vibration of the bowls. And they're just laying like on little mattresses, or like little mattresses or little straw mattresses. And he said it's just so peaceful and so content there. So it's an honor and a joy to be able to share this wonderful experience with you and with your listeners. I mean, it's something that will stay with you as long as you tune into it, because it stayed with me all these years, and it's like it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing that. That is so beautiful. That just all of that information is just it's mind-boggling. I feel it, I do. I feel like I was right there with you.
yes.
Thank you. You're very kind. I told Andrea that Norm Paulson wrote a book called Return of the Ancients, and
Yeah.
he had his own experience visiting the star beings. And I thought I'd sent you that too, the cover of the book called Return of the Ancients.
Turn of the
And he was
Yeah.
he was drawn away from uh, Landers and Integratron, and he went on his own quest to elevate his consciousness and awareness. And in
Yeah.
the book, he talks about how his father had been born uh, blind and almost completely deaf, but he had the ability of being able to use frequency to navigate, and he could tell the height of curbs, the height of steps, and he navigated as if he had a full vision. He was a full vision person, but Norm said that he was blind and he was able to navigate as we would, just using frequencies like a bat does to bounce sound off of devices and objects, and he was able to function almost perfectly normal without sight.
I have actually heard that people can do that and that it's something that you develop. It's like a skill that you develop from being up from just doing it.
Yes, yes. But
I
Norm had started the first organic farm in the United States. It was called Sunburst Farms in Northern California. And believe it or not, when I told the story to Jeff Rentz about Norm Paulson, he said, Frank, I interviewed him for a Los Angeles television station because it was the first organic farm in the country, Sunburst Farms. So he had met Norm Paulson, but he said he never knew of his connection to Van Tassel and the Integratron. And it's like these connecting points were brought together from Jeff's experience, having met two of the son-in-laws of Van Tassel, but not knowing that they were Van Tassel's son-in-laws, and they had like an awareness of the Integratron and what Van Tassel was doing in the desert. It's really remarkable.
Yeah.
And he regrets never having Van Tassel on his program, and he regrets never having uh, Daniel Boone on his program, because he would love to have Daniel talked about his experiences meeting the beings that look just like us. And Daniel would say, they put on Earth clothes and you'd never know that they're space visitors. They just look like young guys, like in their early to mid 20s.
Wow, that's amazing.
I
It
think
really
these are heavily Venusian people at that time.
Yes, yes. A lot of Venusians, because Soganda had told him that he was from Venus. And I always loved the name Soganda. What a beautiful name that is. And at some point, it would be nice to maybe meet him. And it would be interesting if Salai had done a portrait of him. It would have been nice to see a portrait of Soganda.
Well, we'll line that up for you, Frank.
Yeah.
Well, and guess what? I think I can actually share those pictures because I just sent them to myself. So I'm going to share the ones that you were just talking about if I can.
That's it. That's it. Return of the Ancients. Yes. If you get a chance to access that book, I don't think it's available as a PDF, but it's a really remarkable book about his life and his quest to know his higher self and his reason for being here. And a lot of tests and challenges along the way. A lot of tests and challenges.
Yes. And then also, this was the other picture that you were talking about, if I can bring it up. Yes.
That's it. That's Norm Paulson on the left. And he looks like a giant, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
He really looks like a giant. And if you can go back to it.
Wait, I see what I
Take
did.
your time.
Hold on a second. I opened it.
Take your time.
There we go.
Take your time.
There we go. There we go.
And
Wow.
the one on the right is Daniel Boone. And Daniel was such an incredible individual. Again, no ego, no attitude. It's just like he wanted to be of service. And you know what he would do during the daytime? He would drive to the desert looking for people whose cars may have been stranded because they overheated or they had a flat tire, and he would get them operational and back on the road again. Isn't that beautiful?
Incredible. Amazing.
Just selfless individuals.
Yeah.
And they're a part of Americana history that a lot of people don't know about. But the Integratron is still there, and Giant Rock is still there. And I remember when Simon and I would go out there, the rock pile that's next to Giant Rock, if you can go back to one of the photographs of Giant Rock, you'll see a huge pile of huge boulders. One of the earlier ones.
Is it? Not the one.
No, not inside. Like outside where the sheriff took that picture of the saucer, there may be a picture of the rock pile there.
Okay, which one is that? Oh, no, that's the one at night, where they took a picture. So was that black and white?
It was black and white, and it was a saucer above the Giant
Oh,
Rock.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
The one to the right, that's the one.
Yep. Yep. There we go.
No, that's not it. No, it's
The
the
next
one with.
All right, let's
The next
see.
one.
Take your time. That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Unfortunately, it's to the left of the this photograph. There's this huge pile of rocks, boulders, and
Okay.
Simon used to go out back there, and he used to jump from boulder to boulder.
It's
And
not
one
this-
time that's it to the
There it
left. That's it.
There
That's it.
we go.
Yeah. I mean, it is a huge pile of boulders, and it looked like they've been stacked up there. So,
Looks like old pilings, that's wild.
yeah, but they're huge boulders there. They're not as big as Giant Rock, but they're huge boulders. See if you could zoom in a little bit more, Linda.
see if it puts me. That's about as
Yeah,
far.
yeah. Okay. Anyway, Simon would be jumping from boulder to boulder, and he was just ready to jump from one boulder to another. And a giant snake stuck its head out between the boulders, like warning Simon not to jump from boulder to boulder. And Simon said that the head of the snake was like his two fists put together. He said the head of the snake was that big. So he told Doris what had occurred, and Doris told him that that is a sacred area there, that underneath those boulders are huge vases what can did have the remnants of Native American indigenous people who lived in that area. And those boulders were levitated and softly placed down on top of these vases that had the remains of these Native American beings. So that's like a huge burial area.
Burial ground, yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
Something, but there's no markers of it. And Simon said he learned his lesson. It only had to happen to him once.
Yeah, I bet.
And he said, Frankie said, I know if I jumped, that snake would have gotten me. And he said it would have been all over. Because there's rattlesnakes out there, but this was the biggest one he ever saw. And it's just a warning to him. You shouldn't be out there jumping around.
Right. No more playing around on the rocks. Wow.
But I'll tell you this, every time I would go out and visit, when we would go visit Gabriel Green, whenever we went out to the desert, it was like having the skin of an onion peeled off, where you have greater clarity. And it was really remarkable. It's like every time I went out there, I thought I was gaining more in understanding and knowledge and awareness. And it was just like just being there and having that effect kind of bathe over your body and influence you.
Yes.
And of course, it was out there that Gabriel had introduced Simon and I to Celia Winkler, who was the artist who captured the likeness of our star friends on canvases. And she lived in a retreat there in a little cottage. And we had done a program based upon her work. And it was a delight to meet all these people out there. And all of these people were doing incredible work very quietly without any attention being drawn to themselves. But they were meeting with our friends. And our friends would always say to them, we are looking forward to the day we can interact openly and exchange readings and fellowship openly.
Hopefully very soon. That's
Yes.
very, very soon.
Yes.
I think this is the year.
We're now
That's what
we're
I'm
now
being told.
chronicling all the activity on film of all these different people. So it's
Yeah.
going to be available.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
This is what history is,
It truly, it's living history.
living history.
It's living history.
So the Megatron.
And
is
Simon and I were
I'm sorry, the Integratron is still
the Integratron.
is still actually working.
It's still open to the public. It's not functional as a rejuvenation device, but it's still there. And amazingly, after the android body that was Van Tassel had stopped functioning, and the government came in and took a lot of the notes and the work that he had produced, and they confiscated a lot of it. And it's like they didn't want this to continue to be,
Right.
but it still is, because I believe there's protective energy around it. That device, it's on the registry of historic buildings, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah.
Good. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
protected.
It's remarkable. It's protected. Yeah, it can never be destroyed. But he would have people come there and visit with him and try to be confrontational with him, saying, "Why are you creating a device like this? This is going to be the downfall of mankind." And he said, "No, it's a gift to mankind. It's a gift of overcoming disease, overcoming aging, and it's all natural energy. It's all free. It's all free."
They don't they don't want that. They don't want that.
No, I know. They want us taking medication and, aging and, those things will all be stopped. They all will be stopped.
Yes.
I feel that.
Yes. And hopefully, and like I said, I feel like it's going to happen very soon.
Yeah.
And what
I
I
do
put
too.
out there. So let's keep that happening. Let's get that vibe out there
Keep
that
them all.
yes, it's going to happen soon. And if we all think that together, then it will.
Yes. But I also want to share with you too, the home of Gabriel Green and his incredible collection. His collection was like a museum. I met another fellow who's a researcher, and him and his friend had purchased the Gabriel Green estate when he had passed. They had bought it from a broker in Los Angeles, and he said his friend's wife is a member of the Mellon family. I think I told Andrea this story, and she's not into any of this at all. So James's friend passed away. The wife has it on a storage facility in Arizona that's climate controlled, and James has been working with his friend's son to maybe get access to this information so that we could open it up as like a museum or a gallery to people to see the footage of the speakers from that era and the photographs taken of the ships and of the he's got a whole set of photographs that were taken off planet at Hatan's moon planet, Terminus Hatan. And I got a chance to see the photos. There were 3.5 by 5, and they were beautiful color photographs. And my friend James had seen them. He said, "Frank, those photographs are incredible. I saw them too. They exist." And there's manuscripts of other contactees who would come out and visit with Gabriel Green and share information with him. And I may have shared this with you. One night we were talking. There was about 6 of us in Gabriel's home, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, and the phone rang. And Gabe said to me, "Frank, answer the phone." So I answered the phone. It was a hard line, of course. And I heard this clicking sound, and then I heard this male voice that was kind of metallic said, "Gabriel Green, please." So I handed the phone to Gabe. I said, "Gabe, this phone call's for you." So he took the phone call and was writing all these notes down. And he was probably on the phone for about 10, maybe 12 minutes. Then when he hung up, he said, "That was one of our friends from upstairs." He said, "They were communicating through our phone system through the computer on the ship." And they had given Gabe some information that he needed to have.
Yeah.
Amazing. It was really amazing. And having that phone call and hearing that voice, I knew it wasn't, it was a male voice, but it was like metallic in sound because it was going through the computer on the ship to our telephone down here.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense now. Right. That's amazing. So
Just little things along the way.
Oh,
Right,
those aren't little things. Those are pretty
so
fun.
there's these pictures out there that we need to put out there so people can see them of off planet and
Oh, absolutely, yes. And
So-
some of the footage that Gabe took of the speakers, that's historic. That should be in the Library of Congress at some point, because
out
that's
there.
where the whole UFO contactee thing all came together. It came together out there at Giant Rock and where the Integratron was. And people would come out there. I mean, 10,000 people going to the desert in the 50s, that's a huge assemblage of people.
Right. Yes. Yeah, we need a record of this. This is part of history. We definitely need to have it out there.
I think that's why it's still preserved, Linda. And I think at some point it's going to be open to the public.
It will.
Because the public should have access to it.
Yeah, we did.
What do you feel, Andrea?
Well, I don't think it's going to go through the Library of Congress yet. But there's been some risks involved with the government doesn't. I mean, I'm not sure how much. I feel like they've lost a lot of their power at this point. But
Yes.
definitely some of those photos would be things that they would destroy or at least keep. I mean, they have huge amounts of information in
Oh, they
storage.
do. Absolutely. I agree. Yes,
So
they do. They have
it's
their
gonna,
own.
yeah, you'll just take a little bit of time before it's safe to reveal some of that footage. So
Yes. It's like anything else. There's a cosmic time frame, and this
yeah,
drama that we're living through, we just have to be patient and know that it's in the right hands and it's
yeah.
going to unfold.
Well, I was just reading, I'm still reading, just finishing up Howard Menger's book, From Outer Space to You. And
Yes.
he was saying in that book that he took pictures of other planets and that he has video of them.
Yes.
Have you ever seen?
Yes. He took pictures on the moon. I saw some of the photos taken on the moon, and I think I told you that a good friend has the actual notes that Valiant Thor had taken in Howard Menger's garden or in his yard when he was there. The handwriting is incredible, impeccable cursive handwriting.
Wow. Wow.
At some point,
all of this stuff.
I should be able to share more with you.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
There's a lot of goodies still, lots of goodies.
yes, that would be so wonderful.
There's
I
a lot
think
of goodies for sure.
this is part of history. I mean, we
Yeah.
need to do these things. This is beautiful. Yes,
It
thank
is,
you
it
so
is.
much for for sharing your stories and everything today. Just all of those gorgeous photographs. Thank you.
And a lot of those photos are very rare. A lot of people have not seen a lot of those photographs. And I'm glad you're going to be able to share them on your podcast. And Andrew's going to be sharing them with our class. And again, any questions that may be derived from this information, please let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can.
Yeah.
Okay,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And so if anybody wants to reach Frank, you can always contact me on just leave a comment in the description of this video. And we can reach out to you. If you need to contact either Andrea or Frank, you can always do it through me. And I will be doing more of these videos for sure. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for coming on and just
Thank you. It's a joy. It's a humbling experience to be able to share this.
It is.
And as many people as we can touch and reach with this, because we're all being monitored to see how receptive we are, so more of this can be shared.
Yes, yes. Well, I am very excited and thank you again. And Andrea, thank you for being on. And we will have so much more of this. Like I said, I think this year more things are going to come out. That's what I'm hearing. And I'm just really looking forward to that. The future is, to me, it's so bright. We got to wear shades.
Yeah, I agree. That's right. We can't,
Well,
we
the
can't
light
hold back
from
the
those
dawn.
the light from those ships are too strong.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
much
And can I make one further comment? That white light that came into the living room when Simon and I were there, it didn't hurt our eyes. It was just brilliant to see it. It didn't hurt our eyes at all. There was no discomfort from any aspect of any of that. And Doris, when she asked us, she said they were concerned that we weren't injured or affected in any way. And I said, the only thing that we were affected by, we couldn't move. That's it.
Yeah.
But everything else was fine. And then when we had access to movement again, we can move freely. And again, that light didn't hurt our eyes when it bathed us again and when the ship took off.
Amazing. And maybe they even made you a little bit younger while you were at it. You don't know.
Improve my memory. How's that? Improve my memory.
Did something.
Well,
That's
thanks
awesome.
again. And again, any questions, I'm always open to questions from either Andrew's group or your group, Linda. And thanks again for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Frank. And again, onwards and upwards, everyone. And Frank, I'll see you upstairs.
Yes,
Ciao
yeah,
for now,
upstairs.
everyone.
You upstairs.
Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.